This is Rob Anspach, and welcome to eHeroes, the interview series for entrepreneurs. And today's eHero is Rachel Young.
Hi, everybody.
Rachel is a best-selling author and a co-owner of a firearms store in a very male-dominated industry. So, Rachel, tell us how you got involved with guns.
Well, my husband is a Marine and has always wanted to get into firearms. And I guess it was about 6 years ago, he really started getting the bug. We have been serial entrepreneurs for almost 15 years now, and I've done copywriting and everything else, but everything's always been the Rachel Show starring Rachel, which I'm totally cool with. But we felt like maybe it was time for John to have some fun in the spotlight. So he, on $200 in the bank, opened the gun business, and after we jumped through all the hoops with the ATF and everything else, we opened the store. It was just a one-bedroom trailer that was kind of on the same property as our house. But the day that we opened, we were so excited, filled with all the joy and wonderment of entrepreneurs starting a new business. And then 5 days later, Sandy Hook happened, unfortunately. And I don't know how much the folks who are watching know, but if that was December of 2012, that was one of the largest elementary school massacres in the United States. And a lot of the speculation was that he had used a number of firearms, specifically the AR-15, in order to carry that out. And the gun industry was already very hot at the time anyway, due to some political reasons that we don't necessarily have to get into. And that pushed it over the edge. So we opened on Monday. The massacre happened on Friday, and by that Tuesday, none of my manufacturers or distributors were answering their phones. All of their voicemail boxes were full. Their emails were bouncing. They were taking their websites down. The ones who did have websites up had tripled or quadrupled the prices on the items that they had listed on the website. And it was, how do you feed your family when there's nothing to sell?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there were a series of coincidences that allowed us to not only sell to our customers, but to actually prosper during that time. But the fact of the matter was that it was his turn, and I wouldn't consider myself to be a good wife if I wasn't there to support my husband, who had been there for me for over a decade.
So how do you use the skills that you had? I know that you had mentioned copywriting, and I think a lot of the entrepreneurs out there, maybe you don't know this, but I'm probably a direct descendant of copywriting from Dan Kennedy. I learned a lot of the direct response from Dan. I also learned it from Jay Abraham and a lot of the other pros out there. In fact, one of my best friends, came out with this book, Wise Guys Copywriting Handbook, and I prompted him to finally get that into the light of day. And, so now it's on Amazon, and he's starting to, reap the benefits of that book. But going back, how do you use direct response marketing to sell a product that half the population is against?
Well, the half of the population that is for firearms are rabid firearms purchasers. So it wasn't really trying to figure out how to convert the people that were against it. They're against it, and that's totally fine. They're allowed to have that opinion. But the people who are for it, especially here in the South, it is not which gun do you have, it's how many do you have, which calibers do you have, and do you have the latest one in this color? It's on average, people that do own firearms own at least 7, most of them being handguns. And So very quickly, we were able to utilize the marketing. I too am a diehard Dan Kennedy fan. I have been for since we first decided to jump in with both feet and be entrepreneurs. So again, at this point, this is Planet Dan for over 15 years, and so we were able to use direct response marketing, like I said, to thrive during that time period. But even as the panic started to subside, but sales were still very, very high, we went from that single wide, single bedroom trailer next to our house to a 1,800 square foot storefront in less than a year. It was about 10 months. And from that point went from the 1,800 square foot storefront, that's where my husband was also doing all the gunsmithing and everything else. Well, we ran out of room because we niched and had a very rabid market there, and opened up a 5,400 square foot machine shop in addition to the retail facility. So now 98% of our employees are Marines, like my husband. We have a nonprofit that works with recently returning veterans to help them reintegrate into the civilian workforce. We have a steady stream of customers, even at a time when the quote unquote Trump slump knocked a lot of firearm sales down. And it's all 100% of it thanks to marketing. It's all positioning.
Now, you said you started a nonprofit. How did that come about?
Well, we noticed that a lot of our customers are vets, and a lot of them are first responders who were previously vets. And a lot of them talked about the fact that they love the idea of working in a gun store. And when someone says that, the translation is, I love the idea of sitting around talking about guns all day. I don't really know anything about selling. And so we looked at the machine shop and we said, we've got mills, lathes, CNC machines, 3 paint booths, multiple gunsmith benches. We could actually have a whole lot more people in there, but payroll doesn't necessarily justify having a whole lot more people in there. So we're like, you know what? There has to be something more than money that drives what you do. And so my husband and I sat down and thought about it, and it's not just helping others. It's seeing the number of veterans who come in here that say, I had to wait, for 5 hours just to see a doctor at the VA, or I had to wait for 12 months to get to have an appointment at the VA, or the 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. There are all of these guys out there that if they had a way to surround themselves with other vets from recent deployments, that recent conflicts, that got what they were feeling and what they were thinking, and that could be that sounding board, but that also, if you're 18 and you go into the military immediately after high school, the only thing you know how to do is take out bad guys. There are programs with each military branch to help teach you skills, but there's nothing in the United States military that says, now that you're back, we'll teach you how to cooperate with your family, but we're not going to show you how to cooperate with the civilian workforce. And I remember when my husband and I started dating, that he would show up 15 minutes early if we had a date, or would come to pick me up in the mornings and say, why aren't you ready yet? Well, I hit the snooze a couple of times. Why did you even have a snooze? Like there was nothing to help him come back to working with civilians. And for me, if I say, I'm going to call you tomorrow and I don't, it's not really a big deal for me. But to somebody who their life depends on you doing what you say you're going to do, it is a big deal. And if you don't know how to cope or to bring that back, that can be a challenge. So we just wanted it to be more about more than just making money.
So what's your biggest take on the media? I mean, I know that you spend probably a great deal of time educating consumers, but the media is probably your number one. I don't know if it's a selling agent, um, but they're the ones that are feeding the frenzy.
Yes, yes, they are. Um, my I have a love-hate relationship with them. The problem is though, we didn't want to build a business that was based off of national tragedy. So part of it was finding a way that we could create a business that would be evergreen, that regardless of whether it was, the hottest item that everybody was talking about, or anybody could care less, which in the South, I don't really see us never caring about guns. But shortly after we opened the retail facility, we realized that if we tried to sell every single gun to every single person, it wasn't going to happen. There was nothing that differentiated us from any other gun store in the area, other than the fact that most of the gun stores in the area have no offense, they've got, they usually cater to a specific demographic, which is the guy behind the counter is usually an older, sometimes heavyset white guy who could care less about what gun I, as a female, came in looking for. They're very opinionated on it's the Chevy Ford argument, it's the Marianne and Ginger argument. It's they're very, very opinionated on what they want to sell, and this is the best seller, and that's it. So I'm the one behind the counter. I'm the one that gets to help our customers, and we don't, other than a select few, we don't have any finished firearms on the shelf. We are a custom AR-15 and AR-10. We're a custom showroom. So, and that's the terminology that we use with our clients as well. So when someone comes in, it's literally like Build-A-Bear but for guns. They can go in and they can tell me what distance they shoot on average, what they want the firearm to actually do, how they want it to perform, and a dollar figure I need to be respectful of, and I can build them any gun on the planet. So I still overcome a lot of biases as a result, because people are expecting a man behind the counter, and I get a lot of, is your husband here? Is there a gunsmith here? Is there someone here I can speak to about guns? But for the most part, a lot of folks are very impressed that I know about guns. So to go back to your original question about the media, like I said, we didn't want to build a business that was based off of fear, although that's certainly one tactic that we do utilize in copy. So by making it only about the experience, by making it about the accessories, by personalizing the firearm instead of it being about they're going to take it away if you don't hurry up and get it, things like that, we were able to market to a higher income level, a higher price point. Our customer value on average is probably about 3 times what it is for most other folks. I've got folks who drive from, we're in Tennessee, just outside of Knoxville, and I've got folks who drive from Louisiana, from Kentucky, from North Carolina, from Georgia to come and do business with us. Last week we had someone in here from St. Louis, and we've had folks fly in from Texas and Washington State just to do business with us. That was their sole purpose in coming here. So it's taking it beyond what the media says. If anything, using it to your advantage and saying, you bought all of this stuff during the panic, and now it's just kind of sitting around. So we jokingly actually did a marketing campaign that we affectionately called Cheaper to Keeper. And so instead of like with a divorce, usually, you're stuck with somebody you don't like, but it would be more expensive to divorce them. A lot of times, if they bought a gun during the panic, they paid a high price for it. And so it is cheaper for them to keep it and personalize it and actually turn it into a firearm that they would actually enjoy shooting. So there's a lot of ways that you can use things like that to your advantage instead of trying to avoid acknowledging the, the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
You know, I like that phrase, "build a bear, but for guns." That
It resonates with a lot of folks. They actually get it.
how walk me through a process, because the media, I think, has spun it in such a way that they still believe that you can go into a gun shop and walk out with a gun, and that's not true.
No.
So kind of walk me through the if I was coming into your shop, what should I expect?
Well, if you were going to come into the showroom, number one, we are a federal firearms licensee, so we've had to go through all the hoops with the ATF, with the state of Tennessee as well. We're also a Class 3 dealer, special occupations tax stamp dealer, which means that we also sell suppressors, short-barreled rifles, and things like that, even full auto. There are a lot of hoops, both for you and for me, to jump through on that side of it. But if you were a client just walking in off the street, like I said, those 3 questions that I asked before: the average distance you shoot, how you want it to perform, and the average dollar figure that I need to be respectful of. Once I know those, while you're answering those questions, I'm actually looking at the length of your arm, the size of your hands, your height, things like that, and can actually use that information, both visually and the verbal cues that you're giving me, whether you have facial hair and have it on a regular basis. Those will allow me to go and pick out the parts that would be best for you. So a lot of that came from, and I don't mind revealing my sources, a lot of that came from when Say Yes to the Dress was a big show. And so the bridal consultant would walk the bride in and they'd say, how do you want to feel on your wedding day? What do you want it to look like? What dollar figure do you want me to be respectful of? And then they would go pull a bunch of dresses and have the bride try them on, and it's a whole big experience. So we took that show and turned it into guns. So when someone comes in, I can say, just by looking at you, by your facial hair, that's going to affect which buttstock we pull for you, and da-da-da-da. And I'll go pull all of the parts while they're sitting enjoying a cup of Black Rifle coffee, which we do carry in the store. What kind of Black Rifle showroom doesn't have Black Rifle coffee? So while you're enjoying your cup of coffee, I go pull all of the parts. We lay them out on the counter, so the gun looks essentially assembled. If that's aesthetically what you're looking for, and the caliber, the barrel length and such will accomplish what you said you wanted it to do, then we do the background check on the lower receiver. That's the part of the gun that the ATF considers the gun. It won't do anything. It's just a hunk of metal at that point. But that's what's considered the gun. So you have to pass the background check before we can even begin to start the build process. But once you successfully pass the background check, then we're off and running. And when you do a background check in the state of Tennessee, it is to make certain that you're not a felon and that the gun isn't stolen. There is no national registry at this point that the gun is registered to you or anything like that.
Nice. Yeah, I like the fact that you took information from another industry, such as the Yes to the Dress, and you turned it into ideas that you could use in your own business. And most entrepreneurs, they can't see beyond their own industry. And here you are taking something of in the wedding industry and putting it towards something that's, I just think that's fascinating. You're selling the experience, not necessarily the product.
Well, and we've gone beyond just selling the experience. So one of the things I'm most proud of is our marketing, and it's not just because it brings in the standard 35 to 55-year-old male that wants to build a gun. One of the hottest markets in the firearms industry right now is females. And a lot of the firearms manufacturers, unfortunately, are painting male the parts that were normally on a gun that were clunky and heavy, they're painting them pink and calling them that's for the female shooter, and that's just not it. So by having a woman behind the counter and having a woman doing the marketing, I can say we selected these parts for our female shooters because of these reasons. Even down to the industries that we market to. None of our competitors were at Knoxville Pride Fest last year. Just that. None of our competitors advertised in The Advocate or The Guardian. Just that. They don't advertise on, let's be honest, adult-based websites. They are going to the low-hanging fruit, which has been absolutely picked dry, and they are ignoring literally the acres of diamonds beneath their. They're not.
And the low-hanging fruit doesn't have any money, so all they want to do is get the cheap gun that doesn't really do anything, and you can tell probably those type of people as soon as they walk in your showroom.
Yeah. So I think by the time this airs, I'm safe to say we have 3 different venues that we're approaching now. One is my children are biracial, and so my oldest son is 21, and he is coming out with a series of information products for African American firearms owners. We have a series of I'm most excited about this, and it's so girly, I can't stand it, but it's female scented and colored gun solvents and lubricants for female shooters. So there is nothing on the market like that right now.
As long as it's not pumpkin spice, I'm okay with it.
No. No, as a matter of fact, my husband suggested bubblegum scented, and I was like, do you want teenage girls buying this, or do you want women buying this? Mm-hmm. So the various avenues of approach that we have, that we're looking at, we're tapping into markets that no one is paying attention to, because, like you said, they get tunnel vision, and these people are the only ones that buy guns, and so these people are the only ones that will walk in the door when the door is unlocked. Mm-hmm. We're probably the only ones in our area that have a newsletter that collects emails, demographic and psychographic information about our customers. I know more about most of the folks who walk in the door, not because I've interacted with them a whole lot, but because that's the personas, those are the avatars that I've written out that I wanted to attract. So it goes beyond just the experience, but finding the people who want to share that experience with you too.
So how do people find you? I mean, you have a website?
I do. You can find us at fightingsheepdog.com. That's fighting like punching or boxing, sheep like goat or lamb, dog like bark.com. I have to say that because sometimes I'll do it on the phone, the email address or whatever, and they'll say, "Did you say fighting sheepdog?" No, fighting. And so it just got easier to say.
So fightingsheepdog.com. And if you guys are watching this, I'll place a link. If you're seeing this somewhere else, I'll have information that you guys can click on. But yeah, fightingsheepdog.com. And now, what can they expect when they go to that website and they sign up for your email? What are you going to send them?
Let's see. The very first thing they'll get is a thank you for coming. We're actually, I'm so excited about this too. We're getting ready to drastically change what we're doing as far as our autoresponders, because we're integrating SMS with it as well. So you will get a thank you email from us with some noteworthy links in our website. You'll also get a text message from us that redirects you to some additional information that you can view on your smartphone, and then we'll be able to stay in touch via text message as well. So I'm really excited about that new direction and the way things are going. So We'll see.
Well, it comes to the end of the show. So I want to say thank you, Rachel, for joining us. And if you guys continue to be excellent entrepreneur heroes out there and stop on by and just keep on listening. So we're going to have some excellent guests in the future, but please, please visit Rachel, visit her store, buy some guns from her, visit fightingsheepdog.com. And if you want to learn a little bit more about me, visit me at anspachmedia.com, where you'll learn all kinds of stuff, and you can even buy some of my books on social media, SEO, copywriting, podcasting, you name it. We've probably written about it. Anyway, have a great one.
Thank you.